was just pondering season 6 of Miraculous as a whole and some of the theories that I've thought of and seen when a wild possibility crossed my mind, and I wanted to make a video about it because I want bragging rights if it does somehow end up being true. Hey there, I'm Torisaur, and I've done a bit of speculation and theorizing throughout my season 6 episode reviews, but today I want to talk about one theory in particular that I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on. What if the Lila we've seen throughout season 6 of Miraculous is an AKUMATIZED villain? Spoiler warning for all of Miraculous season 6 so far, which as of making this video is all but 4 episodes. A theory that's been floating around in my mind for a while is that Lila has been a clone of her AKUMATIZED self for the entirety of season 6, and one of her clones has been transforming into Chrysalis to foresee all of the AKUMATizations we've seen throughout the season. One popular theory that's been circulating this season is that one of the new characters, Aglaé, is secretly Lila, disguising herself potentially through the power of the Butterfly Miraculous. At the end of season 5, Lila calls Mr. Damocles, asking about enrolling in the new school. The scene ends with her saying,
"I look forward to seeing you again, Marinette Dupin Chang."
However, we've seen no indication of Lila specifically being at the school, and instead have been introduced to a handful of new students. Of these new students, Aglaé seems the most likely to be Lila. I talked about this theory at length in my Reckless Driver review, but Aglaé has exhibited some suspicious behavior throughout the season. In Climactic Queen, she seemingly pushes Aurora towards gossiping about Adrien and Marinette by telling her not to, but in a way that very much reads as manipulative.
You would never be fake or demean yourself by spreading gossip about famous people. It's not worth winning a contest if it means being untrue to yourself, even if it is to get something you really, really want.
Most recently, there's a weird moment in Heart Fixer where Aglaé is only featured in one very brief moment to tell Marinette,
"What you did was really bad."
However, this is before the Nino and Marinette kiss staged by the bullies, so she couldn't have witnessed that. Maybe she saw the fake Nino and Marinette in the courtyard together and caught onto the cheating plot earlier, but Aglaé is nowhere to be seen anywhere else in the episode. And she pretty clearly isn't one of the couple wreckers shapeshifted as her, since the three of them watched the scene unfold from the rooftops, still transformed as Prem, Nino, and Marinette. Despite weird moments like these, Reckless Driver centers around Aglaé's trauma surrounding akumatization, and serves as such great representation for mental health and therapy that Aglaé being a persona entirely fabricated by Lila would undermine the fantastic messaging from that episode. Because of this, an alternate theory that exists is that Aglaé is still her own person, but in certain instances where she's acting weird, she is Lila hiding as an akumatized villain. One big problem with this theory is that only one Akuma can be sent out at a time. In Heart Fixer in particular, Aglaé's weird moment is while the couple wreckers are akumatized, and like I said before, they couldn't have turned into Aglaé in that scene, and if they did, it would have been made abundantly clear that's what was happening. To overcome this, what if Lila akumatized herself into a villain that can create clones, and one of those clones transformed into Chrysalis to oversee all other akumatizations? We already know that a butterfly holder doesn't need to stay transformed for an akumatized villain to keep their powers, as evidenced by Gabriel and Lila akumatizing themselves multiple times. We also know that with the Peacock Miraculous, multiple senti beings can exist at once when created with different holders, which is not only evidenced by the episode Feast from season 3, but by the existence of Adrien, Kagami, and Felix. Although I don't believe it's been specifically showcased, it would make sense if the Butterfly Miraculous abides by the same rule, and you can have multiple people akumatized by different holders. The next part of this theory is a bit of a stretch and introduces a concept not yet explored by the series: beings created by an akumatized villain having the ability to wield a Miraculous. We know that beings created with the Peacock Miraculous have the ability to use a Miraculous, as we see with Cat Noir, Ryuko, and Argos, but we don't know if that applies to those created by an akumatized villain's power. However, I do think it could be possible, since a clone of Lila technically isn't Lila and could theoretically create another akumatized villain. Alternatively, I could see her wielding a power similar to a villain like Vampagami, where an akumatized Lila can transform other people into her and control them, and then that person transforms into Chrysalis and sends out an Akuma. Though I'm not the biggest fan of that approach because it's an even more complicated version of an already overcomplicated theory. Either way, if Lila is akumatized, I think her power is to create shape-shifting beings under her control that allow her to continually spy on Ladybug and Cat Noir, taking notes wherever they go. Lila writing everything down in a journal is introduced in the the London special when she akumatizes herself, so she doesn't forget everything she learns in that akumatization. The fact that Lila is continuing to write everything down in the same way as when she was akumatized could imply that she is, in fact, akumatized. Lila having the power to clone herself and or shapeshift could also explain why Chrysalis has multiple voices during akumatizations, to not only hide her true voice, but because she is part of a larger hive mind, and why at the end of the Illustrator she says,
"You'll know nothing about me, about us, about them. I'm everywhere. I'm nowhere. I'm a chameleon."
That entire little monologue makes a lot of sense when examined through the context of this theory. I also think it's possible that the title Secret Protocol for part 1 of the season 6 finale could possibly be referring to Lila's akumatization, with her clones hiding in plain sight being a secret protocol to unmask Ladybug and Cat Noir. Heartfixer does throw a potential wrench in this theory. If akumatized Lila has clones that can shapeshift at will, what was the point of akumatizing Ray, Loic, and Nelson? Put simply, to stay undercover. If Lila executed the plan in Heartfixer using her own shapeshifting ability, it could expose herself as an akumatized villain. It is explicitly stated in the episode that the only reason Chrysalis akumatized those three was for her plan to akumatize and interrogate Marinette.
It's time to move on to the most interesting part of my plan, the part that made me agree to help those three incompetents.
I wouldn't be surprised if Lila already had that plan laid out, with the trio of bullies providing the perfect opportunity to execute it. Chrysalis only interrogating Marinette about her identity as Ladybug while she was akumatized, knowing she would forget the interrogation, is just one example of how careful Lila has been with all of her planning. And so it would make sense to akumatize the bullies to execute her plan instead of doing it herself and risking exposure. I could also see a much simpler version of my theory being true, where Lila doesn't need to clone herself but is simply akumatized as a shapeshifter. Perhaps simply being akumatized makes her count as a separate person, and thus if she transforms into Chrysalis after her akumatization, she can send out another Akuma. I also considered it possibly being a Scarlet Moth situation, but instead of akumatizing someone else to give her more power, she just akumatized herself as Chrysalis to send out multiple Akumas. However, although I don't think it's been explicitly stated as impossible, if a butterfly holder could just akumatize themselves to have infinite Akumas, why would they not just do that all the time? I think it's kind of a wishing for more wishes situation where it's just something you can't do with the butterfly Miraculous because it is too overpowered. Maybe Lila did find someone else to akumatize to act as her own version of Catalyst, but other than working with Tomoe, Lila has always read as doing things on her own, as evidenced by akumatizing herself in the London special. I think regardless of this specific theory that Lila is sending out double Akumas, it is very likely that she is akumatizing herself to turn into other people and spy around, using her notebook to keep track of everything that she learns so she doesn't lose that information when she is no longer akumatized. What do y'all think of the akumatized Lila theory? The double Akumas theory is definitely a stretch and doesn't have a ton of evidence to support it, but I do think it makes for an interesting thought experiment and isn't out of the realm of possibility. No matter what, I hope we get to learn more about Lila and her plans and motivations very soon. I am really curious what the last 4 episodes from this season are going to look like. If you want to hear some of my other theories and predictions for the season finale, I would recommend checking out my Heartfixer review. I have been reviewing all of the episodes from season 6 and will be reviewing some of the others I haven't talked about yet soon, so make sure to subscribe to catch those videos when they do come out. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like and hype if you did. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all next time.